Hey, what's up, everybody? Thank you for coming over to Wisconsin Sports Talk. I'm your host, Ryan Kostrowski. I'm here with my main man, Brad. We were on yesterday talking over the NL Central, and we are ready to talk some
Victory.
Milwaukee Bucks today.
Yeah, it's the winding down the NBA season, and Ryan and I haven't had a chance to really go over the Bucks yet, since it's one of the few Wisconsin teams I cheer for. So, thought it'd be a good idea to talk about it today.
They've been very easy to cheer for this year. This is without question the most exciting. Well, you know what? I'll give you the Ray Allen, Sam Cassell big dog. I think it was 2001 where they were really good. But, I'm a 38-year-old guy. We're about the same age here. This is like the only team that's been really easy to root for and super exciting like this in my entire life.
Yeah, and we even talked, what was it, 3-4 years ago while we were still working together about how, God, this team, they've got Giannis. It's amazing what this guy might turn into. And then if they can just build around him, and then, we were excited when they brought in Monroe. That didn't work out. But you could just slowly see them build and build. I think Budenholzer was the one that finally, put this team where it needs to be. So
getting the additions of Brook Lopez and Ersan Ilyasova to add some interior defense, but also spread the floor at the big so Giannis can get to the rack at will. I mean, that was just a good move. Jason Kidd absolutely had no idea how to coach this basketball team. And I never understood it because Brogdon, Middleton, Bledsoe, and Giannis are all individually some of the top defenders in the game. But yet they played shitty defense, which made no sense to me. Obviously, it was a coaching issue.
Yeah, Jason Kidd at first thought that was a good hire. And then as you watched him coach this team, you're like, what the hell is this guy doing? And it was clear that he needed to go. Surprised that they did it halfway through the year last year, a little bit. But when someone's got to go, they got to go, just like in McCarthy's case, too, when they got rid of him. The writing's on the wall, and instead of just making the season be that much worse, bring some interim coach in and let's see what happens.
So off topic for a second, you brought up Mike McCarthy, and I had this discussion with a couple of people. They're like, I can't believe they did McCarthy dirty like that, firing him, in the middle of the season. And I'm like, I disagree on that massively. If you're a dead man walking and your season's done and your team's got no shot at the playoffs, you have no chance to redeem yourself, do you really want to go into work? Like, an NFL coach is one of the hardest jobs in the entire world. You work 100 hours a week. Do you really want to keep doing that, knowing that it's over in a couple of weeks? I would have wanted to be fired if I was McCarthy, if you knew it was coming.
Yeah, I mean, the writing was on the wall. I mean, after those tough games against the Rams and the Patriots, I mean, he only had a couple more. He only had really one more shot at it, and the way they performed, I was with you. I mean, yeah, you feel bad for someone. You don't want to get fired. Even at the end of the year, it sucks. He gets fired. You feel bad for that person. But in the same sense, the team was doing nothing. They were going nowhere. Might as well get rid of them, get it over with, because that gave them the opportunity to have the option to look for a coach kind of all the rest of the year, even though they weren't really saying it, but it gave them a jump start on finding that next head coach.
Most definitely. So again, we'll probably do another show about that and get into it. If you're new to the station, though, guys, we are an up-and-coming one. Just started this a couple of weeks ago. I'm a full-time YouTube over for Daily Fantasy Sports. It's called the DFS 5-Pack, but I'm also an avid sports fan. I love me some Packers, I love me some Bucks, and I love me some Brewers, and I wanted the opportunity to talk about them a little bit more. If you want more videos on the subject, press that red button that says subscribe. Anybody who wants to be a kind dear today, we appreciate the thumbs up, sharing on social media, things like that. Always a big help. But I want to get into, did you watch the game last night?
I only saw the fourth quarter. I got 3 kids and they keep me busy, as you know, but the viewers don't. So I didn't get to it as soon as I wanted to, but I did see pretty much the fourth quarter.
Okay, so you saw Giannis step on, man, I'm drawing a blank for a second. It was, I believe, Wilson Chandler's ankle. It doesn't really matter who it was, and it turned, and he kind of had to limp off. It did look like with a few minutes to go, they were going to bring him back into the game. So I don't think it's anything serious, much more serious than it had been, because he's been dealing with that ankle for a while. Brook Lopez hit a big 3 then, and they brought him back to the bench and didn't even bother putting him back in the game, which I was happy about. If it was you, if you were the coach of this team, knowing that the East is wrapped right now, we got a 4-game lead, 5 if you want to count the tiebreaker. We're not going to lose out even if Giannis doesn't play. And even if that's the case, I don't think the Raptors are going to win out because they're going to rest Kawhi. What would you do in order to get his ankle ready for the playoffs?
I think what I would do for sure, I would not play him against Atlanta. Sorry, Hawks fans, if you want to go and see him on Sunday night. That's probably not going to happen. I think as long as they win that game against Atlanta and then they play Brooklyn. I could see him sitting against Brooklyn to give him 2 more. And then if Thursday against the Sixers is like the one where they can clinch like home court everything, like in the East, and if they were to get to the finals, you could see him play against Philly. And then after that, I think he sits until the playoffs starts.
Oh, so you see it a little bit differently than I do. I'm all about sitting him for a good part of these games coming up. I would absolutely sit him at Atlanta. I would sit him again at Brooklyn on the tail end of that back-to-back. And quite frankly, and I know this is not what the NBA wants because they want to see these two teams go back at it, I would probably sit him against Philly because if you think about it, that gives him over a full week off because there's not a lot of games. If you look, there's only the one game between Monday and Saturday. Then there's, another day off after that. Then I would see where we're at. And if it looks like we still got home court kind of wrapped up, I may not play him again until kind of like a tune-up. Like I'd let him tune up against Atlanta. And then we want to play to beat Oklahoma City. It's kind of like a playoff team, just kind of get ourselves ready for the big show that's coming. But I probably wouldn't play him for at least a week. If it was up to me, I think we give him as much rest as he can. Let him get healthy. I know he's going to fight it. If you saw in the interview, he says, I don't like to sit out games, so I'm going to try to play as much as I can. Sometimes you got to help out the athlete because the athlete always wants to play.
Exactly. It's no different than a guy who gets his bell rung in NFL and says he's fine. That's why they put the concussion protocol in place because that stuff was happening too much. So, like you said, you got to protect the athlete. And you may be right. Maybe we do, have him sit against the Sixers because that could be the best thing for him. Like you said, get a full week off of that ankle, rest it, ice it, do whatever you need to do, and then get yourself right for the playoffs.
Yeah, I'm definitely sitting on this up and coming Sunday and Monday, though, at Atlanta, at Brooklyn. And keep him home. Keep him away from the team. Let him get some real rest. Let him get his legs under him. And then if you want to tune him up against Brooklyn, Atlanta, and OKC, I get that. But we've got the number 1 seed in the East, wrapped up. And I would like it throughout because I do have high aspirations for this team that we can make it out of the East and that we can get to the finals. And again, if we're playing Golden State in 7 games, I want Game 7 in Milwaukee because I need every edge I can possibly get. Or if it's somebody else like Utah or Oklahoma City or Houston, for example. But we'll see what they do. I do think Coach Bud and the organization needs to get in his way, though, and make sure he's out.
I agree 100%.
And that's just the thing with athletes, as we mentioned. Athletes always want to play. I'm yet to ever find a football, basketball, or baseball player who won't force himself out there if the coach will let him.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I did it when I was in high school. So,
I was going to say I did the same thing in high school. And even going back to Little League, I broke my finger in batting practice once and made sure I still played that game by saying it didn't hurt. And I'm just some 12-year-old chump kid and playing in a Little League game. You don't think these guys at the highest level are going to force their way into games if you give them the opportunity?
Exactly. Got to protect themselves.
Definitely. You got to protect the athletes some days because they won't protect themselves. That's how they got to this level is by being, straight-ass ballers who will want to just go out there and play as hard as anybody can. All right, so kind of switching topics for a little bit. The MVP race right now is about as close as we've probably seen in recent memory. LeBron and James Harden were really close last year. But again, we got Giannis versus James Harden right now. I don't know. Actually, I guess I never really asked you. Who would be your MVP?
My MVP would be Giannis. Not just because I'm a Bucks fan, just because I feel like he does just a little bit more than James Harden does on the court. Yeah, Harden throws up the fancy 40-point, 50-point games all the time, but that's not necessarily what it should be for your case to be MVP of the league. There's more that goes into it, like you got listed here, like defense and all kinds of other little things that he does that I don't see Harden do.
Exactly. And I think us as fantasy sports guys and daily fantasy sports player, we know all about the usage rate within NBA. And I believe Harden's at 41% where Giannis is only at 32 because, and again, I get the argument that there's better pieces around Giannis, and there is. The Bucks are a little better than the Rockets to me. Their team overall, if you remove the 2 MVP candidates. I mean, Chris Paul is probably a little better still than Eric Bledsoe, but after that, it's definitely deeper on Milwaukee. But that's why his usage rate is low. If Giannis wanted to average 40 points a game, he could average 40 points a game, but he chooses to distribute, and that's why he leads the league in assisted three-pointers.
Yeah, totally. Because he will drive, and the next thing you know, as he's driving, 4 guys collapse on him, and he kicks it out to Middleton, and he knocks down a 3.
Yeah, man, there's a reason that they filled this team with shooters, which is something I've been actually saying about Russell Westbrook for about 4 years, which is you don't need to have another superstar around him, even though obviously Paul George is kind of emerged into that category. But if you built a team around Russell Westbrook the way they built it around Giannis, Take that physical freak that needs to be double teamed in every play and just surround him with shooters, which Milwaukee did. Thank you, Coach Bud, for that one. It's a team that can really play. There is no true second superstar on this team, but they got a whole bunch of B-plus players, and Malcolm Brogdon, Chris Middleton, Eric Bledsoe. Even Brook Lopez has showed he's far from washed up.
Dude, Lopez, that is such an understated signing. When they signed him, I was like, that could work out pretty well. And then as the year has gone on, it's like, man, this guy has made such a difference with block shots, hitting those three-pointers, Mr. Splash Mountain. It's been awesome.
The second they signed him, so I bartend once or twice a week, and there's one guy I work with who's a big-time sports fan. It's really the only other dude I work with I can talk sports with over there. So whenever we're together, I mean, we're talking Milwaukee Bucks. When they signed Splash Mountain, Brook Lopez, we were both super excited because, I liked John Henson. I liked his feistiness and stuff like that. But John Henson is like 120 pounds soaking wet. And when you got to bang with these big guys down low, it just doesn't work. Not that Lopez has got, Joel Embiid's size, but he's a bigger guy down low. And again, being able to pull the opposing big away from the basket cannot be understated because that gives Giannis free will of the paint. And not just Giannis, like Bledsoe and Brogdon can drive the basketball as well.
Yeah, and that's one thing with Brogdon too. He's being missed right now. I hope he gets back and is what he was, because he's a difference maker on the court that only helps Giannis be the MVP. And, Bledsoe gets to the rim because of Giannis. Middleton can get to the rim because of Giannis and because of Lopez. So they make a huge difference. Even if Giannis is having a bad night, those guys can pick it up.
Absolutely. And you throw in if Mirotic, who's probably another week or two out from being healthy and getting back onto the squad. Mirotic had a big-time playoff series last year against the Portland Trailblazers when he was on the New Orleans Pelicans. I do think that his he's been there, he's done that, he's seen a little bit before. I like the idea of having a little veteran leadership within the locker room with him to kind of piggyback off the rest of the players. Hopefully he can get right. But having all these big guys in Mirotic, Ersan, even DJ Wilson to an extent that can pull the opposing bigs away from the basket. It's the difference between what Coach Bud brought to this system and what Jason Kidd had these guys doing. He's invented it. He switched it over to more of a modern NBA type of team. It's been a lot of fun to watch. I can't remember being as excited, other than the Brewers' most recent season, for any team Wisconsin-based not named the Packers.
Yeah, I mean, the Bucks, it's been one of those things that I've been waiting for them to get to this point. And now that they're there, it's so exciting to watch this team. Like, even my wife has fun watching this team again. And that's awesome because I can throw a game on and we'll sit and watch it together.
I've been saying for years now to people, guys, you got to jump on the Bucks bandwagon. This team is going to be good eventually. And the addition of Coach Budenholzer, he said something in his interview that he knew how to unlock the talent of this team because that hasn't been done the past couple of years. They've always been underachievers. He's done it. He knew exactly what to do. And I know a lot of people think they keep going back to his days in Atlanta. They go, oh, yeah, they were good in the regular season, but they couldn't do anything in the playoffs. His best player in Atlanta is debatably Al Horford or Paul Millsap. I'm sorry. Those are nice players, but they are nothing to Giannis.
Yeah, I would agree 100%. That's why they had good regular season and they couldn't do anything in the postseason.
Basically, those Hawks teams were as good as these Bucks teams if you took Giannis off of them, with Bledsoe, Middleton, Ersan, Nico, and stuff like that. Now you add debatably the best player in the NBA. Yeah, it's going to be a bit of a difference maker.
Big time.
All right, so here's an intriguing question. I kind of mentioned this beforehand a little bit. The Bucks have a lot of good players. They don't have any other great players outside of Giannis. And we're going to pretend like a minute for Malcolm Brogdon is healthy. Gun to head, who is the most important Milwaukee Buck not named Giannis Antetokounmpo?
I think it's Brogdon because he can do so much. That guy is, to me, when I watch him, he's the best second-round draft pick ever because he gets to the rim faster than some guys that I've even Bledsoe. Sometimes he can get there faster than him, and he can hit down the three. He plays great defense, and he sometimes is the guy, the catalyst that if this team is down 10 or 15, he's the one that gets them going sometimes.
The president, he is cool as the other side of the pillow. He hits big shots. He is one of the top-ranked defensive players within the entire association. He is not fast like Bledsoe, as you mentioned, but he's extremely crafty in the way he gets to the basket that I think he constantly surprises people on how he gets there so quickly that they're like, wait a minute, how did this guy just get by me? And they're like, all right, I got this. And then he does it again on the next play. and he's been doing it all season. He's right now a 50-40-90 guy. For those of you who don't know what that means, he shoots 50% from the field, 40% from three-point range, and 90% from the line. That's only been done a few times by a few different people. He's incredible. I'm a huge Malcolm Brogdon fan, and I do really think if we can't get him back, it's a reason we're probably waiting till next year for the championship, or at least to be competing for it.
I agree. So hopefully that 6 to 8 week timetable on him, hopefully that means he's back before the Eastern Conference Finals, as long as his team gets that far, and that he has no rust then at that point too.
Definitely, because it is hard to work your way back into it. Now, fortunately, we do have some guys who can fill in with Pat Connaughton. George Hill's been to the playoffs. Sterling Brown is no slouch. And if we get Nico Mirotic back, we can run that big lineup out there. You can run Bledsoe at the 1, Middleton at the 2. You can bring Nico in at the 3. Brook Lopez. I mean, you can definitely do some things with this team, but we need Mirotic to come back, and we definitely need Brogdon to come back. So I was kind of thinking this. I don't have a good, firm answer because all 4 of these guys are really important to Milwaukee. My answer was Eric Bledsoe, and if you hear me out for a second, I know what I'm getting out of Brogdon and Middleton because I expect them to be, if they're in there, I expect them to perform. Chris Money Middleton is generally money in big situations, so I know what I'm getting out of him. Lopez, I need him to make his shots too. But the X factor for me is Eric Bledsoe because talent-wise, I think Eric Bledsoe is the second most talented guy on Milwaukee. But he came up small in the playoffs last year. So if he comes up big this year, it could be a gigantic difference maker for him.
It could be like the situation where the Cavs beat the Warriors for the title, where everyone was so focused on LeBron, and Kyrie was the one that basically helped them get that championship.
The Rockets are one of the best teams in the NBA. Eric Bledsoe beat them down the other night. He just came with some flurry in the third quarter. That was amazing. Giannis, they defend Giannis really well. So the Rockets match up poorly with Milwaukee overall, but the Rockets do a really good job of defending Giannis Antetokounmpo because PJ Tucker's got the girth to make things hard on him, and Clint Capella defends the rim about as well as anybody. So they made it tough on him, but Bledsoe took that game over. That was impressive.
Yeah, and him blocking Harden from behind on that layup, I was like, oh, man, that's awesome. Because Harden wasn't expecting it at all. And to get that thing swatted away, and then Bledsoe gave him the stare down, it was awesome.
Yeah, I like his moxie too. I need him. I don't know what happened last year against Boston where he was outplayed massively by Terry Rozier. I don't know if he hadn't been to the playoffs and it just was something new to him. I need him to come up big this year because he's the guy who, he's the other guy of a give me. I trust Chris Middleton to come up with big shots. I need Eric Bledsoe to be Eric Bledsoe and be Eric Bledsoe of the highest level in the playoffs. I need him to hit some jump shots. If Bledsoe's hitting jumpers, this team, they're just as good as anybody, if not better.
Oh, definitely.
So, again, is he going to hit jump shots, though? Because he's the one other guy besides Giannis who's only, we'll call him a mediocre jump shooter, very erratic.
That's true. But when he does get it falling, he's not afraid to take them.
No, he's not. All right. So, here's my other question. And I've been back and forth on this one. Who do you least want to play in the playoffs? So the way things break out right now, we got the Hornets, the Magic, the Heat, the Brooklyn, and the Pistons all battling it out for these bottom 3 seeds right here. I mean, I think anybody who's being honest with themselves knows that we don't give a shit about these teams. They're all not very good. None of them are going to be, any kind of a threat to Milwaukee. I don't want to play Miami. We'll beat Miami, and we'll beat them in 5 games. But they will take a lot out of you physically because they try so hard on every single night. But ruling them out, and then if we're being real honest, the Pacers have overachieved all year, and I'm not really scared of them. When it comes down to the Celtics, the 76ers, and the Raptors, is there one of those 3 teams that you have the most fear of?
Most fear is Toronto. I think Toronto has had this stigma in the Bucks' head, like they can't beat them. I know they played the Celtics last year, and they couldn't get past the Celtics, but the Celtics are very beatable this year. Hence why they're in the 5th seed right now when everyone thought they were going to be the top seed. And the Raptors, to me, are the team that, with Kawhi and Lowry, it's enough of a 1-2 punch to scare you.
All right, so I've been kind of thinking that for the same most of the year that it was the Raptors. But, I mean, having watched all 4 of the Bucks-Raptors game this year, and maybe this can be recency bias on my part, having watched Philadelphia, beat Milwaukee the other day, I've kind of shifted over to thinking that the team that scares me the most is the Philadelphia 76er with the additions of Jimmy Butler and Tobias Harris, because they give us matchup problems that I guess the best way to look at it is like nobody can stop Embiid. You know, Brook Lopez will do a better job than Henson, but Embiid is basically unstoppable when he wants to be. I don't think anybody's going to argue with that, right?
I agree. Yeah.
Okay. He's really, really good. He's the second best player in the East, in my opinion, behind Giannis Antetokounmpo. They got Jimmy Butler. When it comes down to in a close game, and he just did this against us the other day, he's a very good shot maker in big situations. Jimmy Butler is your classic overachiever, plays great defense, not a great outside shooter, but he can hit the three ball occasionally when needed. But when it comes down to it, he can go run iso ball, very similar to Middleton, and I trust him to make big shots, and that scares me a little bit.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, right behind the Raptors in my eye is the Sixers. I mean, especially when they got Butler and Tobias Harris, it was one of those moves. It's like, okay, they're going for it this year. You know, they're trying to, if they may not catch the Bucks to be the number one seed, but they're going to make it tough on them if they meet up in the playoffs.
Yeah, I would, and it's interesting. Like you always hear Stephen A. and Max Kellerman talk about this. Like styles make fights. Like Philly struggles with Boston. We have been beating Toronto pretty handily this year. I mean, we beat them 3 or 4 games. In the game that they beat us, they were just flat out on fire. And the 3-point shot is the ultimate equalizer. And that's where, like with Philly, with Tobias Harris and Redick, if those guys really start going, they are tough to beat. So I don't poo-poo your Raptors thought. That's kind of what I was thinking for the majority of the year. But one of the reasons I like the way that we match up with Toronto is I don't think they can score on us in clutch situations. Kyle Lowry has folded and faded in the playoffs every time he's ever been there. Eric Bledsoe owns him, will shut him down. And as much as I like Kawhi Leonard, if it's down to it at the end of the game, Middleton, Brogdon, Giannis, they can all D him up for any possession that I feel like we can definitely shut them down when needed to be. Everybody talks about, oh, what's Milwaukee going to do when the game slows down? I don't know, play the best defense in the world and also shut the opposing team down?
Yeah, sounds about right to me. Let's just hope that Raptors Sixers, if it gets to them before they play Milwaukee, that Toronto somehow comes up with a win.
Yeah, I mean, I guess either of these teams are pretty good. So I don't want to like get too big for my britches and think that we're going to roll on either of them. But those two teams, right, they could obviously make a case. Looking right now that we'll get the 8 seed. And then I'm wondering how this thing finishes out, like Pacers and Celtics. Because ultimately, I think we're going to end up getting Boston then in round 2.
I think so too. I'm
not really scared of Boston.
I'm not. Earlier in the year, if you asked me, I would have been. But the way they've played all year, and I feel like they've underachieved a bit. And you know, maybe it's the Kyrie factor, just with things that he said, the things that he's done, his injury. But I feel like we can beat them unless like Horford and everyone gets hot from behind the 3-point arc like that game early in the year.
Yeah, we lost to them in Boston by like 3 points when they set a franchise record for the number of threes made, and they still barely squeaked out a less than 5-point victory. Like congratulations. Yeah. They're a bad road team too. They're under 500 on the road, and we're going to have home court advantage.
Yeah, so I think it's going to be Boston. I just, like you said, I don't think Indiana. I think that could be a series though that could go 6-7 games and wear themselves out before they get to Milwaukee.
I wouldn't be surprised if the Pacers beat the Celtics. I know I'm probably the only one that thinks that, but when you look at the Pacers and you look at the Celtics, from a talent perspective, Boston's clearly better. I mean, the Pacers are missing their best player. For me, though, if you want to talk about moxie and intangibles and teams that bring their A effort every single night, the Pacers bring it every single night. Again, if Boston plays their best, they're much better than Indiana, but I trust Indy to bring it every single night.
I agree. It's going to be a good series as long as it stays. It should stay that way. Maybe the only thing that'll change is who's got home court in it. But that series should be good, and it'll be interesting to see what happens.
So that does give us the nice part that we probably don't have to play Toronto and Philly, as you kind of mentioned. We'll just have to take one or the other. But right. For me, that's probably where we end up in the in the Eastern Conference Finals. Is taking on the winner of the Toronto and Philly series. And I think that would be a 7-game series in my eyes.
I don't see how it wouldn't go 7 games, and it's a good thing Milwaukee should have home court advantage because, like you said, having home court in the NBA is a big deal. At least I think it is because the fans help energize a team. And Middleton said it last night after the game in his post game. He's like, this crowd, we feed off of this crowd. And he goes, we want these games at home for them. So,
hell yeah, man. They're 32-6 at home this year. Like, think about how
Exactly.
good that is.
Well, I was at the one of the 6 that they lost. So
Which game was that?
against Orlando when Giannis sat.
Yeah, that sucks, man. You missed that. Like, I went to the game in Cleveland last week, and not to
Yeah.
see Giannis was kind of disappointing. So you feel my pain on that one.
Yeah,
Um,
I knew it was going to happen because it was a back-to-back, and it was where they had Middleton sit Friday night. And I even said to my wife, I'm like, we're not going to get Giannis tomorrow. She's like, oh, you don't know that. And then by like noon on Saturday, they announced that Giannis was resting or sitting with the hip or whatever they were calling it at that time. I showed it to her, and I'm like, see, told you. I know the NBA.
yeah, us DFS players, we know our trends pretty well because we watch it every single day, and we know when the phantom injuries. Obviously, I can't see you right now because I got the presentation up, but I hope you did air quotes when you said the hip because I don't really buy a lot of these injuries that he's had. If it was important, he could have played.
Oh, yeah, I'll air quote it again.
So, all right, man. Well, I'm pumped for the playoffs this year. I'm really, really excited for this. I'm glad that we get. I mean, I'm not going to call one of these teams a bye, but whether it's Detroit, Brooklyn, Miami, Orlando, or Charlotte, I mean, we should win it in 5 games or less.
I would hope so. I mean, there's no reason they should get the first 2 at home. And if they can go on game 3 on the road to any one of those and get game 3 right away, I mean, that just makes it tough for that team. Maybe they'll get one more at home before it goes back to Milwaukee, like you said, and make it a 5-game series. But it wouldn't surprise me either that they just morale's down and Milwaukee tends to sweep them as well. So
You've seen this with Milwaukee all year. They don't take a lot of games off. I mean, they got 19 losses, so it happens from time to time. Sometimes good teams just beat you. When we played the Thunder in Oklahoma City, they played a great game, and they just beat us that day. Philly the other day, they would just play better. Their secondary players outside of Giannis, because Giannis and Embiid went toe-to-toe, their secondary players played better. We lost a game at home to Toronto. It happens. We lost to the Pacers. Things like that will happen. For me, I actually would much rather play the 6 or 7 seed right now because I think we would sweep either Detroit or Brooklyn.
yeah, I wouldn't disagree with that at all. Like you said, Miami, they'll probably beat Miami in 5, but like you said, it'll be more physical and they might be a little more beat up for that next round against either Indiana or Boston.
Definitely. So I don't know, man. I am pumped. I haven't looked forward to an NBA playoffs like that in a really long time because this is the first time in a few years I feel like it's not a foregone conclusion that the Warriors win. Also, because I really feel like the Bucks, I mean, at minimum win a series, but very possibly are competing in 4 of them.
Yeah, I agree. This has been a really exciting year to watch the Bucks. I think you and I probably got on it a little bit earlier than a lot of people, knowing that this is what the team could have been. And it just took a couple more pieces in Budenholzer to help get them there. So now that they're going to be the number 1 seed, more than likely, and have the chance of, I think they can get through the East. I really do. Like you said, we're scared of the Raptors. We're scared of the Sixers only because we know what they can do. But overall, Milwaukee's so deep that I don't see any reason that they can't get to the finals. And like you said, this is the year the East might have a shot at taking out the Warriors.
I'm not for sure that the Warriors make it to the finals this year. That team's got issues. Both, Boston and Golden State were the darlings, and Golden State deserved it, right? They've been amazing for a long time. They brought in Boogie Cousins. Intangibles that go into sports, and this as a big sports fan. It's not always just what you do, what your talent level is. You're seeing it with the Brewers right now. This team loves to play together. Things like Lorenzo Cain making a walk-off home run rob yesterday. Like there's just something about that. That luster with the Warriors, I don't see it this year.
No, and I don't. Maybe KD is a little bit of a cancer on that team, and yeah, I mean him and Draymond were having some beefs during the year. So I mean, who knows how that carries over into the playoffs? You just never know.
We used the term yesterday, fat and happy. You've been to the finals 4 years in a row. You got 3 championships. Like maybe you're just not as hungry. Every team going up against Golden State right now is hungrier. So yes, they're still the most talented. But you don't think like if they get into a game with a series with Utah, who is really underrated, you don't think Utah's 10 times hungrier than the Golden State Warriors?
Oh, not at all. I mean, and it wouldn't surprise me if Utah would win that series. So, I mean, Golden State is beatable. I still think they'll be in the finals, right? I mean, I know you're rolling your eyes. Yep. I mean, inside me, I'm rolling my eyes too because I don't want them to be. But I think that's what it's going to be. And let's just see if the Bucks get there. Are they the team that dethrone them?
So for the last however many years we've been watching sports, like there's only rarely been times where you would take one team over the field. And like legitimately last year, you would have had to give me like 10-1 money to take the field over the Warriors. I got it about split this year. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I think it's about even money, the field versus Golden State, which I know that still means they're the best by a pretty good margin. But when the field's been like, to me, like 10-1 odds the last couple of years, I'll take even money.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I'm super excited for the playoffs. Cannot wait for them to start. We'll get together and watch some of those games. And I mean, go Bucks. That's all I can say. Go Bucks.
Definitely. Nice hat. All right, guys. Well, thank you very much for watching. If you haven't done it already, we appreciate all the thumbs up, all the likes on the video. And if you haven't yet, subscribe to the channel. Any sharing on social media is sincerely appreciated. It is really tough to get a YouTube channel going. I have my other one now, which is up to like 10,000 subscribers, but it took a while. And that's where we want to get, but it'll take a little work on the front end.
Yeah. Hey, I've enjoyed it the last 2 days. Hopefully I can do some more. Yeah, I love it. Let's talk sports all the time. I love it.
We got a lot of Bucks to talk about.
Yes.